Hello from Safonovo. This is a podcast pigeon of peace where we do discuss awesome skills of troubleshooters. Watch, listen, and check the description below for the details. Let's talk about alchemy, and let's start with the definition.
Alchemy is a very ancient art, and it's not such old and as philosophy, but almost the same. Alchemy was the mother of chemistry, and we are very grateful for it. But for the very first time, alchemy, it was like a discipline about some естественные знания.
Natural knowledge, general knowledge.
Some natural knowledge about surrounded world, and it was well known that we consist of some small parts, and there was also an idea that those parts could be converted, for example, from свинец,
plumbum probably,
from
but it's a
plumbum,
chemical
yes,
name.
from plumbum to the gold. And by the way, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, it happens, and in a huge collider, modern scientists approved, or they come up with the experiment which was successful, and it is already proved. The main goal of alchemy was not just to gain gold from everything, as a lot of people think, but also it was about how to gain longevity and immortality, how to become the man of the world with a huge letter M, how to be useful for other people's bodies and souls. And alchemy is a very modest and very grateful science.
And well, this is actually quite new fact. And if we look into what exactly alchemy was looking into, yes, probably maybe turning conditions of substance to one to another. But what kind of, and I do believe, like you said this to us in the AI courses, like what kind of picture of world was in the alchemy, like what kind of lenses they use, what kind of structure it has, so that like we would end up with like plumbum turning into gold, or like a man achieving their best in the universe. So what are the bases, what are the lenses, what are fundamentals there?
I will not mention names of the alchemic people, because they are not such a famous as, for example, medicine or physics or mathematicians. But anyway, they were looking for a philosophical stone which would convert everything to everything, and it also would be like cure for everything. I don't know how to say.
Yeah, cure for everything.
Cure for everything. They also were looking for a way how to develop the soul, how to develop the mind, how to become the man which would all time give great advices. They were thinking about self-modification, how to be healthy, how to be prudent, how to be literated. And yes, sometimes they would be hired by the kings, by the monarchs, or leaders, and they were captured in some special places, and they were trying to create poison and something like this. But anyway, they were trying to imitate a lot of things in the world. For example, they were trying to explain why our Earth has winter and sun and summer, why we have tides, why people, for example, come up from the eggs. Sorry, animals from the eggs.
Makes sense. So it looks like those people more like scientists with a good mix of philosophy, probably some sort of like a religion, because I do believe like the moment this thing was happening was quite ago. So then, yeah, my question would be, if you mentioned that all of the powerful people in the world who actually would have resources and would have like a slightly different goals, they would keep them together. But then there should be a resistance, because as I mentioned, religion was quite against like any development in the human body, especially in the human philosophy and maybe even in the powers that happening in the world. So how alchemists would survive. And I'm not only speaking about religion, but like in general, because humanity, I do believe at that time, it was not really up to, like some modern or like going about to the next level.
Alchemy were divided for internal and external. Internal is how to develop your soul, your main pillar, and internal is how to be noble and how to be useful for other people. When you are a fighter, you want to have a great sword. If you're a protector, you want to have a great shield. If you want to dig something, you want a good machine. If you want to travel, you want to store water or provision. So all alchemists, they were well occupied and they were doing a lot of experiments, but not of them would be successful. In those cases, they would be killed because they will spoil something which was eatable, or maybe they fail to produce some kind of weapon and so on. So they were quite living high tense life, and they were under the pressure of people with power. They were thinking that they could buy time. For example, mother or father of some king would going to die, and magician people will say, okay, we have like 1 day left. At this point, people will run to the alchemist and say, maybe you could save us. And if he was lucky, he could get everything, or he will lose his head. So there was no doubtfulness. The church will always say it, everything is in the God's hands. So the church people will never be responsible for death or, for example, birth. But alchemist guys, they, for example, would be asked, could you guess what is the gender of new baby who would come up with, or what will happen with our cattle or our camels? And just survivors would become a good alchemist.
So it seems like they would have a lot of responsibility, a huge cost for mistake, and maybe like a not so much recognition. And if we would, for a moment, imagine if we would step into the laboratory of, I would say, like a standard alchemists at the time, what exactly we could see? Because I do remember when I was a kid, there was like a huge book of like an encyclopedia, and there were like a lot of like a nice picture, hand-drawn picture. So it would show some sort of like a wizard who seated like with a lot of books. He would be, like writing something. There would be a lot of beacons, a lot of glasses, etc. So what exactly we might be seeing, pleasant or unpleasant there?
The main instrument of the alchemic is amusement. So those people were trying to steal information from everywhere, and the knowledge was the highest value they could buy. So they were hunting down for the I don't know how to say, manuscripts. They were hunting down for some formulas. They were hunting down for special instruments. They were trying to use telescope and microscope. They were trying to combine everything with everything. And first time when I was proud to learn about alchemistry, it was when I saw at some point of time the experiment which has name like Egyptian snake. Maybe I was wrong in translation, but our watchers and listeners could see and search in internet, and it is combining of two metals, and it usually aluminum and maybe natrium. And if you will put one on another, suddenly you will see that almost from nothing, from the scratch, will appear huge something is rising up, and it will go, some like kind like snake. And maybe in the dark shadows, or maybe under some cover of lights, it would be looking like a cobra or something like this. And it's quite good. Okay, there are a lot of other like focuses or illusions. For example, matches will suddenly burn out. Maybe it would be like some other stuff like illumination, but it's not such colorful as Egyptian snake. If you will read the Alchemist book, you will find that there are a lot of words, formulas, or I don't know how to say, curse, заклинания.
Spells.
Yes, spells. There are a lot of spells. What to say if you're going to the enemy fortress? What to say when you will be in the storm in the middle of the sea? What to say when you are going to the first how to say, bright night? I don't know how to say.
Bright night. Wedding night.
Wedding nights, yes.
And if we look at the modern world, because for me, it seems that alchemists were, I would say, like a pioneers. They would step into the territory that no one would step, even knowing that it could be like a harsh punishment for that. And if we look into like the modern world, well, obviously the meaning could be different because, you know, like nowadays it could be like a scientist, but do we still have such probably people or such areas that definitely could use help of modern alchemists?
Yes, you know, I was never touching this topic, but you asked, and I am responsible to answer. When I have been to Japan and I was working there, I was asking for, and then I got the permission. I have seen the people which are discovering themselves or recognize themselves like ninjas. So they are running in special mode, they fight with special mode, they throw shurikens and some other stuff which will stick inside of people. And when I was in Spain, I was also heard that there is a person. Previously, it was a pharmaceutical or pharmacist, and then he discovered in himself, and also he found or inherited the special book of alchemist. And I asked, is it possible to come up with him and to make a small talk? And suddenly I found myself in a castle, huge one, very old one, and it was occupied by a lot of different offices. And one of this office was alchemist. I came and I found a lot of dead bodies of different animals and also birds and some, I don't know how to say, пресноводные.
For this one, I need to think about.
Okay, people, creatures which is looks like snake and frogs and some other stuff. And everything was very unusual, a lot of retortas, a lot of huge glasses filled with formalins, and there were a lot of different creatures on different stages of development, even small non-born rats and something like this. And this person asked me, what do you want to buy? And I told him, no, I don't want to buy, but something to buy. But I have heard that you are a very vast person. I would like to pay some money to stay up with. Do you have some knowledge to sell? Because I am collector of the something unusual and life hacks and so on. And he was he gasped and answered, okay, I will give you some points, but you know, they are not the tricky ones. If you would be experienced in chemistry, we could conduct some experiments. And I told him, yes, okay, let's do this. And suddenly he became a usual chemistry teacher. He was showing me how, for example, some metals would float on the non-Newton liquid or something like this. And I was thinking, okay, it's quite maybe good for people who do not know chemistry and physics, but nothing unusual. And then he found that I was boring, and he asked me, it's not enough for you? And I was saying, yes, I was hoping for something like about soul, about immortality, about longevity. And he showed me several books and say, do you able to read Latin? Hopefully, I was lucky to know Latin because I was on the business law institute, and also I was learning some martial art and also Latin. And then I was trying to read, and he has no patience. He was saying, yes, you are so slow. Maybe you read it good, but too slow. And he pronounced some spells, and he was saying, okay, it will protect you. You will be never killed by the bullet or the knife. And I was saying, okay, thank you.
Well, I do believe this is also was a nice segue of responding how alchemy could make a world a better place. So we review the skill, we look into shinobis, we look into the ancient times, and now we know what alchemy could mean to you and how it could make your life better. So stay in peace.